Elias Hart. The country didn't collapse all at once. It cracked slowly, like old wood left under too much weight for too long. The kind of cracking you don't notice until you step on it and realize the floor has been given up for years. By October 1929, I was 8 years old in Huntington, West Virginia, sleeping behind a diner on 3rd Avenue, close enough to the Ohio River that the air always tasted slightly metallic. I scrubbed floors in the morning and cleared plates at night. I learned to move quietly, to become useful without becoming visible. People didn't call me Elias, they called me Kid. Names require memory, and memory was becoming expensive. I heard the word crash before I understood what it meant. Men leaned closer to radios. Women counted coins twice. Newspapers arrived thinner, like they were already surrendering. Someone said, Wall Street, the way you say storm, like it belongs to the sky, like there's nothing you can do but wait for it to pass. But where I stood, things had been falling long before the stock market did. Coal camps had been breaking families for years. Men had been losing work quietly. Children had been learning hunger like a second language. Still, after the crash, something changed. The air felt tighter. Even the silence sounded different. People stopped talking about the future as if it was a place you could reach. In 1930, hunger developed a rhythm. You ate when you could. You worked when someone allowed it. You waited the rest of the time. The diner had a back door that stuck in winter. In the mornings, I pushed it open and breathed in cold air that smelled like smoke and damp wood. In the evenings, I watched men sit in booths for too long, staring into coffee they didn't finish. Sometimes they came in with tools. Sometimes they came in with nothing. Sometimes they didn't come back at all. One night, a man in a frayed suit asked for pie. The owner said there was no pie. The man nodded as if that was the last proof he needed. He sat anyway. He stared at the table like it might explain what his life was supposed to be now. When he left, he didn't slam the door. He didn't curse. He just walked out slowly, shoulders slightly rounded like he was carrying something heavy that no one else could see. That was the new America. Quiet damage. And behind the diner, the trains kept passing. They came through late, shaking the walls, rattling the dishes, making the world tremble in a way that felt almost comforting. A train didn't care if the country was failing. A train moved because it was built to move. At first, that sound scared me. It felt like the world was too big, like it could roll over you without noticing. Later, I found myself leaning toward it, listening for the exact moment the wheels hit a certain joint in the rail. Clack, 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 like a heartbeat that never panicked. Movement began to feel like the only honest thing left. Men started gathering near the tracks. They weren't locals exactly. They were everywhere and nowhere. People with blankets tied in rope. People with hats pulled low. People whose faces looked older than their bodies. Some had families somewhere they didn't speak of. Some had no one. Some were just trying to outrun the shame of staying still. They spoke about places the way people spoke about weather. Headed west. Trying my luck in Ohio. Detroit's got work. St. Louis is better. Nowhere's good, but somewhere's different. I watched them from a distance at first. Watching was safer than hoping. Hope had a way of making you careless. Then one of them noticed me noticing. His name was Frank Miller. He told me that, but not right away. At first he just appeared one evening, leaning against a fence like he'd always been there, like he belonged to the shadows. He had a crooked nose and a carpenter's hands, wide palms, split nails, the kind of hands that remember how to build even after the building stops. He asked me a question no adult had asked in years. "How long you been here, kid?" "Too long," I said. Frank gave a small, tired smile. "That's how it starts." Later I learned he was born in 1902 in Ohio, and that before the world fell apart, he'd built porches and cabinets and staircases, things meant to last. Now he traveled with a small kit of tools he rarely used, like a priest carrying a holy book in a town that forgot how to read. Frank taught me things nobody wrote down. How to tell if a man was dangerous by how he held his shoulders. How to stand like you weren't listening while you listened to everything. How to read chalk marks on fences and bridge posts, symbols left by men who had turned the country into a map only they could understand. A circle meant kind woman here. A slash meant keep moving. A cross meant danger. A cat meant food maybe, but watch your hands. America's got its own language now, Frank told me once. You learn it or you starve. I asked him why he helped me. He shrugged. You're already on the edge. Might as well teach you how not to fall. Sometimes we sat near the tracks at dusk and watched the freight cars crawl by, endless and indifferent. Frank would point at the wheels. Those don't forgive, he said. One mistake and you're part of the rail forever. I asked him if he had children. Frank looked away. Had a life, he said quietly. Not the same thing. That answer carried a weight I didn't yet understand. By early 1932, the diner couldn't keep me. The owner started looking at me the way people look at a problem they wish would solve itself. He never said he wanted me gone. He didn't have to. I could read the silence by then. And Frank started showing up more often. Not to comfort me, not to promise anything. Just to remind me the tracks were there. And the trains didn't ask for permission. One evening in April 1932, the sky hung low and gray. The Ohio River looked like dull steel. A freight train slowed just enough to tempt you, just enough to make you believe you could do it, if you didn't think too hard. Frank stood beside me, eyes tracking the cars. You don't jump unless you're ready, he said. Once you're moving, stillness feels wrong. I was 10 years old, thin, quiet, and already tired in ways children shouldn't be. I thought of the houses I'd passed through, the names written in pencil, the birthdays nobody noticed. I thought of my mother's hum, how it tried to hold fear back. I thought of my father's posture on the porch, standing straight, because he wanted his sons to remember him correctly. And I thought of my brother's last words to me in that church basement in 1921. If you lose me, it doesn't mean I'm dead. The train groaned. Metal screamed against metal. The ground vibrated like a warning. Frank jumped first. And I, after a breath that felt like the last quiet thing I owned, followed. I didn't jump like a hero. There was no music, no clean, brave moment. Just fear and timing and the knowledge that if you hesitate, the world punishes you for it. My foot slipped on the edge of the step. My knee scraped wood hard enough to burn. My hands caught a metal rung and pain shot up my arms as if the train had bitten me. For a half second, I felt the pull of the air trying to peel me away. Then I was inside. Darkness, motion, a smell of dry grain and old sweat, the sound of wheels arguing with the rails, constant, unforgiving, almost soothing once you stopped fighting it. Frank pulled me farther in and sat with his back against the wall like it was just another evening. "You breathe," he said. "First thing you do is breathe." I realized I'd been holding my breath the entire time. We rode north first, then west, routes that meant little to me except that the diner, the alley, the sack I slept in, all of it was shrinking behind us. I didn't look back. Looking back is how you let the past decide you belong to it. In that boxcar were other men too, not many, 2, maybe 3. Quiet types, one with a scar along his jaw, one with a cough that sounded like it had been building for months. They glanced at me and then away, as if acknowledging a child on the rails required accepting something about the country nobody wanted to say out loud, that they were children on the rails, that the world had gotten that bad. The first night, the temperature dropped. I wrapped my arms around myself and tried to sleep, but the train's movement kept pulling my thoughts in circles. In the dark, everything becomes louder. Your stomach, your breathing, the small sounds your body makes when it's afraid. Frank took out a piece of cloth and handed it to me. "Put it under your head," he said. It wasn't much, but it was something that belonged to him. And I understood then that on the rails a gift is a kind of trust. I asked him where we were going. Frank didn't answer right away. He listened to the train the way a doctor listens to a heart. "Nowhere," he said finally. "But nowhere's got a lot of stops." Then softer, "And somewhere might." Over the next days, I learned what traveling really meant. You learn the language of stations without reading signs. You learn the smell of a town before you saw it. Factory smoke, river damp, livestock, oil. You learn that hunger isn't just pain. It's a voice that speaks constantly and tries to convince you the world is smaller than it is. We got off outside Columbus, Ohio for half a day. Frank showed me how to find work without begging. "Don't look desperate," he said. "They'll smell it." We helped unload crates behind a grocery for a few coins and a bruised apple. We ate sitting behind a brick wall while the city moved on without noticing us. That night we climbed another freight car. The rhythm returned. Climb, hide, listen, wait. Somewhere near Dayton, we met a man who carried a newspaper like it was an identity card. He said the government was starting programs, work camps, relief efforts, anything to keep men from turning into ghosts. He spoke about it like he didn't believe it, like hope had become a rumor. Frank listened with half his face. The other half turned away. Later I asked him why he didn't want to believe. He stared into the dark. "Because when you believe and it doesn't happen," he said, "it changes you." I knew what he meant. I'd believed my brother was dead. Then I'd believed he was alive. Both beliefs had hurt me. Both had kept me moving. Belief was a knife either way. Weeks passed, then months. The year 1932 stretched long and uneven. Sometimes we slept under bridges. Sometimes we found barns with kind owners who pretended not to see us. Sometimes we were chased away by men with sticks who treated poverty like a crime. Once in Indiana, a farmer's wife left bread on a windowsill without saying a word. Frank nodded at the bread like it was a prayer. We ate slowly, respectfully, as if speed would insult the gift. At night, the older men told stories in fragments. Not full stories, just pieces. A job lost, a son who left, a wife who stopped writing. They spoke as if finishing the story would make it real. I didn't speak much. But inside me, something had started to harden into shape. Not cruelty, not anger, clarity. The rails didn't care who I was. The country didn't care who I was. Families didn't care. Systems didn't care. Papers didn't care. The only thing that had ever cared enough to speak directly to me was my brother's voice in that basement. If you lose me, it doesn't mean I'm dead. Sometimes when the train ran through wide empty land and the sky opened up like a wound, I imagined Sam somewhere out there, older now, maybe riding these same rails, maybe working somewhere with his hands, maybe carrying my name silently the way I carried his. It didn't matter whether it was true. It mattered that the thought kept me upright. One night, near the edge of Illinois, Frank's cough worsened. It started as a small sound, then turned deep, as if something inside his chest was trying to escape. He waved it off, but I watched him fold into himself when he thought no one was looking. The rails taught me to notice weakness. Weakness was where endings began, and still, we kept moving, because that was the only thing we knew how to do. Lying in the dark, listening to the wheels beat out their endless argument with the track, I understood something clearly for the first time. Staying had been a decision, too. I just hadn't realized I was making it. America was breaking, so was I. But since April 1932, I was no longer being carried from house to house, from list to list, from corner to corner. For the first time since 1921, the motion was mine. And when you've spent your whole life being passed along, choosing your own direction feels like a kind of dangerous freedom. That was the real beginning. Not the night the mountain burned, not the day my brother vanished. The moment I jumped and decided I would not wait for anyone to come back for me.